Right. Welcome, everybody. Eugenie, are you with us? So we're going to listen to two case studies. And again, these case studies are live. They're real life case studies. So when you listen to these case studies, we would like you to listen to them in the using the systems thinking lens that I mentioned, but as live situations. We want to understand the messiness, the complexity, and to look at it. And remember to keep drawing. Eugenie, over to you.
It's afternoon. Good afternoon, Sammy, and
Good
thank you
afternoon.
everybody for allowing me to present my case study today. I am just going to quickly select. Okay, I hope you can all see the case study that I am presenting. It's very small on my side. Is there a way that I can make it a bit bigger? Okay, I am just going to continue because I've got glasses, but that's fine. So good morning or good afternoon, everybody. My name is Eugenie Ninham. I am from the Neighbourhood Development Program. And today I would like to present to you a case study of the Makhulong Youth Hub, Beauty or Beast. It's a case study about the implementation of a youth hub in Tembisa in Ekurhuleni. But let me start first with just giving you some background on where I work and what work we are doing. So I'm from the Neighbourhood Development Partnership Program. We are a program in National Treasury. We started in 2006 and we are responsible for the Neighbourhood Development Partnership Grant. So this is a grant in National Treasury, and we attempt to eradicate spatial inequalities by providing grant funding to leverage public and private sector investment in specific locations across South Africa. So we revised our program in 2012-13, and we focus now very much on what we call the urban network strategy. This is just some background. We have, in terms of our grant, we've got two funding streams. We've got a technical assistance funding stream and a capital grant funding stream. And at the moment, we are servicing 37 municipalities across South Africa and what we call 57 precincts, or precincts is pockets or areas for development. Okay, so Tembisa and Makhulong. In terms of our approach, we look at the preparation of investment plans for nodes in municipalities, and Tembisa was selected as one of these nodes. In 2016, we did a plan also for this area. So you will see the map on the left-hand side is just indicating the Ekurhuleni metro, consisting of areas like Kenton Park or Tambo Airport, Germiston, Boksburg, etc. But to the north, we've got Tembisa, specifically Tembisa Township. And as you can see on the left-hand side, a plan for a specific area in Tembisa was done. So we call this area the civic node area. Okay. Just move on. Right. So So in about 2018, the municipality and Amandla Edu Football approached the municipality and then us to develop what we call a safe hub or a youth hub in Ekurhuleni, and a site was specifically identified next to the existing Makhulong stadium. It's this one over here. The NDP proposed that we actually do a little sub-precinct plan first to ensure that we link the areas in this precinct. This is what we call a precinct. So specifically the youth hub area, link it with other areas because we were concerned about things like safety. So, for instance, if kids come to this youth hub, how would they walk across areas where there's no lighting, etc. So we thought, yes, we'd look at the wider area, look at an integrated approach. Okay. So in terms of then the site, this is the site that we identified for this youth hub. So the site is basically on the left-hand side. Currently, there's an informal soccer pitch there. There's also a buddy box center where distribution of products are done. Then at the moment, there's also a Yes Center where there's conferencing facilities, and then there's some facilities for the planting of vegetables, etc. Okay, so just to show you a bit of the site and the zonings, the site was zoned for park purposes, and you will see it's consists of more than one earth, so 3 urban, and the topography is also a bit of an issue because it is underlined by, it's a wetland area, it's not that easy to build on it. Okay, so we did the plan for the area, and what was proposed was to basically, like I said, integrate with the existing stadium, and then to build some residential units next to the area, and also then to incorporate the existing facilities into the bigger site area, but then to have the youth hub over here. So you are probably also asking, what is a youth hub? I'm going to explain that to you now. So what the youth hub would consist of is a support center for kids. It's a networking space. It's also an artificial pitch where there's training and different soccer teams can play against each other. Anyways, and then there's also some office space. This is just also an idea of how this facility would look like when it's finished. So in terms of this facility, the idea is that us, the grant, would be, sorry, that's my husband. The grant would be funding the facility. The municipality will own the asset. Amandla Edu Football would be the operators, and then there would be also be, or Pepsi would also be part of the funders. Okay, so in terms of then the progress, so the project will consist of 2 projects. The roads and NMT, and then the youth hub itself. So both would progress through certain grant funding stages. So the first would be project preparation. So as per the usual built environment process, but then the NDP requires 2 specific approval approvals. So the first one would be for planning, and the second one would be for construction. In between, you would procure service providers, uh, the project designs would be done, and then you would procure a contractor after approval was given for construction, and then you would construct. So I'm probably going to go back to this slide. This is just where we are at the moment. And maybe just to give you some background on the approval. So NDP follows a specific process, a baseline management process, where we require certain stage approvals. So first, we've got inception, and that requires a stage approval. And then, as I mentioned, there's a baseline 1, concept viability, baseline 2, tender, where you've got approval for tender for construction, then construction after tender, and then close out. So in terms of the approvals, you can see there the costs for the project. Initially, it was about 25 million. It rose to about 34 million. That is specifically for the AstroTurf, the youth center, paving and fencing, etc. And then in terms of the NMT, it's mostly consisting out of 3 streets and walkways, and it's about 16.5 million. Those are just the cost of works. That does not include the the cost of works are highlighted there, 19 million and 30 million, etc. So that gives you a bit of background to this project, but it looks like a very simple project, but it's been very difficult to progress. Some of the major issues in terms of this project is the service provider teams. So the service provider teams were changed. We are now on our 3rd service provider. In terms of project approvals, the difficulties we experienced there was with the municipality and compliance in terms of these approval processes. So this is a very difficult process for them to comply with. And then in terms of subletting and the other stakeholders involved in this process. So, for instance, we've got the Yes Center together with Amandla Edu Football. That's all involved with the municipality to design this facility. And then, just in terms of the municipal budgeting processes, that is also a bit of a sticky toffee. Okay, so maybe just to show you then, this project was launched in 2018. We are in 2022 and we have not actually started. Well, we probably within the next week or 2 only will start with the site excavations, etc. We have started on the roads already, but the actual youth hub has not yet started. So what happened was the first year we got the approvals in place. We then did the sub precinct plan, and we completed that. But what then happened in 2020 was that the municipality didn't budget for this project in terms of their vote system. So although the grant gave them money, they couldn't spend it on this project as they allocate certain funding to certain votes, and a vote is like a project. So the project was then basically stalled for a year. We then had to get also a new service provider that had to be kind of groomed into this project. That caused difficulties. And then, just struggles in terms of the project preparation work that needs to go into this project before you just start constructing. All right, so maybe just to also give you highlights on the stakeholders. So we've got the municipality, and they've got different units. Their roles are the owners of the project. They need to implement the project and they need to do the approvals. But we had an issue with compliance, coordination, and reporting on their side. Then we had Amandla Edu Football. Um, they are the sourcing the funders, and they are the provide guidelines in terms of how the facility should look. But there were issues with contractual issues between them and the youth hub, and the Yes for Youth guys, because the Yes for Youth guys are subletting from Amandla Edu Football. NDPP, that's us. We are the project funders. We control the costs, but there's a lot of issues just in terms of project spend, in terms of compliance, and also cost controls. So if a project, if the costs rise a lot, that's a huge problem. In terms of the subtenants, yes, for youth, contractual issues, and they also had an issue with services on site. Like I mentioned, the service providers, they are responsible for the design, supervision, but we've had difficulties with them. All supervisors are not as good as you would expect. And then, of course, the contractors doing the job on the ground. Okay, so I mentioned a couple of the key challenges, but maybe just to highlight them again: constant change of service providers. So I'm not sure if you know, but in terms of the MFMA, there's a clause in there that says that service providers need to be changed every 3 years. You can accommodate them, but there's a certain process involved, and municipalities do not always understand that process, so they just change the service providers, no matter whether if it's a multi-year project or not. Then also the quality of the service providers, the municipal budgeting system, as I've mentioned, the vote system allows you only to budget for a project if it's part of a certain vote. Then just pressure to finalize the project. So the donors, Pepsi, threatened to withdraw because this project is not going. Um, the municipal procurement system, yeah, I've mentioned that. The issue of subletting and contracts. So, in terms of this whole project, Amandla Edu Football would basically be renting this facility, and they would then be subletting to the Yes Center, etc. And that whole contractual issues, that those needs to be in place before you can even start with the building works. Just the coordination of this implementation process, and then communication. I think that's a critical issue. So for everybody to understand what is proposed and what will eventually be built. So we've got this idea in our heads that everybody looks at our precinct plan, they're going to understand that we want this beautiful youth hub and a little community precinct, um, with a nice walkway boulevard between the existing stadium. But it's not necessarily what the service providers see. It's not necessarily what the contractor or the municipality sees. So just to have the same vision. Um, yeah, to just communication from the municipality side. So to explain to us progress on the ground, the status of the project, where we are. If the understanding just of, if somebody tells you that we will be on the ground in a month's time, but they still have to approve the plans, things like that, or you have to first get your zonings approved, etc. That takes time. So just to understand the status of all the processes that leads up to this project. Stakeholder inputs into the design process. So yes, you have to accommodate everybody. We set up a steering committee to try and guide all the stakeholders, but it's a difficult process. And then of course compliance. It's a difficult thing to do if you've got 50 things. Like if you're a municipal official and you have to comply, but you've got 10 other grants and things to do, then yeah, sometimes that slips. Okay. Oops. Right. Then just mitigating measures. So what we try to do to mitigate some of the issues is to ensure that we've got cash flows so readily available to show us when things will start. Also, monthly reporting to give us an idea of where the municipality is. So, understanding that we are a conditional grant, we are not the project managers of the project, but we provide the funding, and we would like to see how our funding is being spent. So we cannot manage this project on the ground. To have progress meetings between National Treasury, the municipality, all the stakeholders, stakeholder engagement meetings. In other words, also steering committee meetings, and then recently we've now appointed a new service provider team, and we're very hopeful that this will also be a positive to get the project moving faster. Yes, and that's it from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Eugenie. Thank you. Just from the participants, is there one or two questions before we move on to the next case study? Eugenie, thank you very much for that case study. And we're going to engage with it when we get into the breakaway sessions, and you will still be around for us to clarify things with you. Uh, yes, Ahmed Khan is saying
Thanks,
something
Sammy.
there. From the description, it does appear as if the vision for the project is not really owned by all, or there is or it varies. There varies understanding of what is to be done and why. Um, was there a uniform, stable department for that specific project that took the lead, and accountability is another question. So just those two, Eugenie, and then we can go over to Dr. Eldrid.
Thank you very much for those questions. Those are difficult ones, and I was promised that I won't get difficult ones. But anyways, no, I think in terms of a vision, that's such a good comment, because I do not think that it was probably the vision for the project was probably owned by all. Um, I think in terms of a solution, the idea was and is to have our steering committees, and at these steering committees we try to guide the vision and to see if we can get everybody to align to have the same vision. But it's sometimes very difficult because you know sometimes you get new owners, so um there's also a change in people working on this project. So
Mm,
yeah,
mm.
that kind of makes it a bit more difficult.
And did
Um,
you have a stable uniform department for that project that took the lead?
so yeah, so we do have, so the Department of Human Settlements is the department in, so they are in Ekurhuleni. So it's the Ekurhuleni Human Settlements Department. Um, yeah, so they are taking the lead, but it did take some time for them to just get things together. But
Mm,
they are
mm,
at the moment.
mm,
Yes,
mm. Thank you, Eugenie.
thanks.
And I think if I may just then comment on that, is that you'd have seen I use the word stakeholding rather than stakeholder, because sometimes we make the assumption that a stakeholder is somebody who sits in a particular defined box, but it's actually a movement between different interests. So the very same person today is saying, I want the project. Tomorrow, they have seen something different, they want something different, and so on. So it's more about this moving, stakeholding interest. And I think that's what we are hearing from you. Thank you very much, Eugenie. You'll still be with us. Uh, Dr. Eldrid, let's welcome you to tell us the second case study. Again, we are dealing with raw, real situations. And as we do that, remember, all of us in the room, we are drawing rich pictures and we are uploading those rich pictures on our drive that we have posted for you. Eldrid, over to you.
Thank you, Semi, and good day to all the professionals as well as the new generation of professionals in the house. Thank you also, Eugenie, for the intro, because I will build on uh, the case that you presented. Geshi, a quick one. I think we share a passion for development planning as development practitioners, and I've just learned that myself and Semi has possibly got a passion then for systems thinking. So just for the listeners out there, I'm a trained geographer. So as part of geography, we do learn systems thinking. All right. So as part of my PhD, I also then ventured into systems thinking, and just as Sammy explained the whole idea of systems, I will then also within my presentation touch here and there on the complexities of systems, right, and specifically within the infrastructure sector. Uh, could backstage, could you upload the presentation, please? Okay, so my topic today is around untangling the complexity of infrastructure projects, and it's a case study here in Buffalo City in East London, where I'm currently sitting. Next slide, please. All right, what you see in front of you then is on the left hand side the word untangling. All right, so we know when something is tangled, right, it means it's a little bit messy, and Sammy spoke about the messiness of some of the things that we see around us in terms of systems. And before I start with the presentation, one can possibly go back and just look at what is happening around the world. In Pakistan, we've got floods. In Ukraine, Russia, we've got wars, right? And all of these things impact globally on what we do, how we act, how we react, right? And because we're part of a global system, we are impacted upon. And coming back to that part that Sammy said, that although within a system there are individual components, they are dependent and interdependent, although at times they could also be independent. So in the infrastructure sector, right, and specifically in this case study that I'm going to present, we have that uh, uh, there are actors, right, that are within, and there are actors that are peripheral. So to move to the next picture, one see there when this recreational site at Court Crescent, and that is the Esplanade of East London, was then given to the agency. We had many things to contemplate. All right, the first one was where exactly, what will it be, who will we serve, what recreational activities will they be there, what is the role of communities, the businesses around there because it's on the esplanade, right? uh, what will be their input, uh, when we deal with the shareholder, the politicians, the board of directors, how will they influence and understand this process, and then most importantly, the contractors, SMMEs, and laborers, how do we engage them in this complex system of just building one infrastructure project, but having to satisfy the needs, the wants, the aspirations of a broader community that are all meshed into this system. So by definition there, I then indicate that when one look at complexity in terms of systems theory, we look at a framework by which one can investigate and or describe any group of objects that work together to produce some kind of result. Next slide, please. All right, so there's this in the construction industry, we speak as it being an economic catalyst, and I understand that some of you are economists, some of you are social scientists, etc. And the aim of this presentation is specifically to give you a better understanding of specifically those two areas within the construction space. Right, so there's this general notion that provision of good quality infrastructure is a powerful tool in poverty reduction. We see that from the NDP. This morning, Dr. Ramahope spoke about project packaging, etc., and how infrastructure could be used for growth and development of the country to reduce inequality, poverty, etc. So therefore, the construction industry provides the foundation for economic growth, job creation, skills development for our country, and we see that as a leverage around the world as well. So the graph that you see there is just some kind of indication around the trends since 1990, 1998. Up until recently, and we can see the construction industry is through ebbs and lows, right? So it's quite volatile and dependent on markets. For those that are economists, it depends on the materials that are available, the price of materials, and all of these things obviously has got an impact from macro as well as microeconomic sort of trends. So overall, we saw a decline since 1998, especially in the civils. So those that are not familiar with the building industry, so you've got your civil engineering works, right? That is landscaping, and then obviously your buildings, which is office parks, houses, etc. So the construction company failures then resulted because of this slowdown in the sector, and in the CIDB levels, construction industry development board levels, it's mostly those at the lower levels. So CIDB 1, 2, and 3, that has been highly impacted upon by these because they are still building their brand, building their businesses. And when there's a slowdown in construction, it means that they are the hardest hit in processes like that. And that obviously then lead to retrenchment, job losses, and closure of businesses. All right, next slide. All right, so just to then introduce my former employer, the BCMDA. So I'm borrowing this project from them because I've been there up until the end of June, and this was one of the projects that I implemented during the time there with quite a competent team of professionals. So the agency, like SOEs, are normally this catalytic investment sort of agents of municipalities. They need to track investment by having catalytic and big projects, specifically infrastructure, and it's outside of the domain of service delivery because these are things that are not normally done by municipalities. So we had an approach in terms of infrastructure. We wanted to make sure that we provide low value without policing the policies that are there, but to then ensure that there's high value growth. We wanted to support a developmental state and make sure that all the red tape that we are speaking about change into green tape. We wanted to promote the critical role of infrastructure as a leverage for socioeconomic development. Skills development, employment of SMMEs, employment of local labor. We went out from the start to say that we want to be an honest, fair, and competitive procurement agent. We guarantee 30% of all our infrastructure projects to SMMEs, and I'll come to that part now. And then we wanted to make sure that SMMEs, their skills are developed through what we call in the infrastructure sector P's and G's, preliminary and general. So that is your broad administration that actually allows SMMEs to grow, and to ensure that 70% of all the workers on site must be local labor. And then a key thing for us was to make sure that we pay all our service providers within 30 days, right? So if we have to go back to the graph, we'll see that the infrastructure, when there's a slowdown, the hardest hit are those at the lower tier of the contracting space, right? And we wanted to make sure that we provide payment on time, so that SMEs don't have to extend to credit facilities, which become a nuisance and an expensive process for them. All right. Next slide, please. So just to walk you through the case itself. All right. So I've got timelines there from 2016 to 2021. So the agency that I worked for was Buffalo City Metropolitan Development Agency. It was re-established in 2016. So it's supposed to be a specialized unit of the municipality. So what the municipality can't do, they ask agencies normally to do. So when we started in 2016, we only had a operational budget with a staff of only 4 executives, a PA to the CEO, and then an administrator, right? And our mandate wasn't clearly indicated to us. So we sort of played in the dark. And as executives, we then said, and guided by myself, I said, let's look at a potential space or spaces that needs revamp. And we know, for those that has been to East London, our beachfront is in a terrible state. We cannot compete as a beachfront with anyone in the world. So we then decided that there was a LSDF, local spatial development framework, for the beachfront, and we decided that this space that you see under 2029 Court Crescent is maybe a space to start to revamp the whole beachfront precinct. You heard Eugenie speak about a precinct, right? So this project is then the catalyst for bigger projects, but the aim was to make this one work. So the space, as you can see there, uh, was transformed, and I'm using town planning terms, totally transformed. Uh, you had daily parking of trucks, people there looking at the sea, and trying not to get into the water, but make sure that there's enough water getting into them. All right, and you know what I'm referring to. So moving from that then to the third picture under 2020, to redesign that space, right, into what we then term an interactive recreational park. All right. And then in 2021, to start the process. And you can see on the right hand side, the space will then have an information center with ablutions, hawker stalls, an amphitheater, seating areas, water features, retaining walls, walkways, steps, platforms, water and sewage and stormwater reticulation, refurbishment of existing infrastructure, a kids play area, outdoor gyms, and local art. So that is what we intended to do, and which we already started to do. But within this complex mess, right, we needed to find out what everyone wants, right? And when we had then our stakeholder engagements, and I will come to that now. All right, everyone else had a different idea, and within this mess and complexity, to put something together in terms of a spatial plan, right, was not an easy task. But I'll talk you through that process right now, as we move on to the next slide. Next slide, please. Right. So just in terms of untangling, and you'll see on the right hand side this little bit of tangling and trying to straighten up as we go all the way down from March 2016 to September 2022. All right. So just in terms of the timelines to untangle these complexities. So as I said, BCMDA was reestablished in March 2016. A council resolution then were provided to for us to develop Court Crescent a year later. That is July 2017. All right. At that stage, we had no capital funding provided to us. In March 2018, we started a public process which included 300 SMMEs over nearly a week to engage the communities of East London, to advise them what our intentions was as the agency over at least the next 5-year period. uh, After that, obviously, when we got clearance from the council, we had to appoint our first project management consultant team in July 2018, and that is now 2 years later. They were responsible for all the town planning things, the design of the park, engineering services, as well as the EIAs, which was all approved in March 2019. That's 3 years later. Then we had to appoint a second project management consultant team, all right? Because with the first one, there were various issues, and you will possibly ask me about that after my presentation. We had to appoint another team in July 2019. So all the IP of the previous one had to be transferred to a new team. That new team had to interpret all the drawings. They had to make sure that everything was in according to the plan, right? And whatever was not there, they then had to redo. Like for instance, your geotechnical studies that was omitted in the first study, which increased the cost of the consultancy services. Then we had to go out on tender for a contractor in September 2019. uh, Eventually, the contractor was appointed in December 2019. We had to finalize the 30% SMME packages, which we did in January 2020. The contractor went on site and established site in February 2020. Uh, we had a sorting with the mayor, the province, that is the premier, on site and communities, telling them that this eventually is what will culminate into an interactive park as per your wishes, as per your aspirations that you provided to us when we engaged you in 2016. So it's quite far now already. Then in April 2020, COVID hit us and our sites were closed. The contractor was there, his equipment was there, and everything else was there, but we couldn't continue with work because at that stage we were under hard lockdown. We returned to site on July 2020 because were then deemed essential services, and there's obviously a political interest here because we know political interest is something that runs over a 5-year period, and we already lost around 4 or 5 months, and there was a little bit agitation because the term is coming to an end, and we have not even started the project. All right, so we were then forced back on site. um, we As a result of that, we had extension of time claims in terms of the general conditions of contract. All right, for those that do not understand the construction industry, because this is a civil project, it falls within the domain of GCC. We then had an extension of time claim in September 2020. We had to sign off a variation order for the increase in materials, especially steel. By January 2021, steel prices went up by nearly 40%, meaning the contract value needed to increase because the contractor couldn't carry the cost by himself. We then discovered, as we then were continuing with underground service, we discovered 5 bulk services that were not on any engineering drawing. All right. So we inherited a post apartheid process of having infrastructure that are not at all mapped, designs not available. One of it was a electricity cable right in the middle of the road that we needed to revamp. That alone costed us to replace 2.5 million because we had to move it to the road reserve. Then there were a number of delays in delivery of material. because the speed of manufacturing slowed down with COVID, and those that could work had to compete for quite a lot of material. So all in all, by December 2021, we were 6 months behind schedule because of the various delays. At some stage in December, and I was traveling in the Northern Cape, my SMMEs called me and said, Eldrid, we've not been paid, right? So I had to go into virtual negotiations with the contractor, because then the term that was used this morning is construction mafia. That then became real, because the indication was that if we can't get our money by the 23rd of December, we will destroy to the value of what we are not paid. And that is a real threat, right? So then in January 2022, we had this severe damage in Dansani and Duncan village, and people think it was limited to there, but the amount of rain that fell increased the water table. And remember, Court Crescent is at sea level, so a lot of our infrastructure that we already installed got impacted by the water table rising, and especially our road services, because underneath we did not have subsoil drains. Now you can think of the impact of that on the infrastructure already on site. Then in February 2022, SMM is threatened to close the site because the non-payment persisted again, and there's a reason for that, because January, February is normally your adjustment budget period within municipalities, right? And the funding that needed to be provided to the agency was then not secured through the municipality, and therefore we could not pay the contractors uh, on time, and as a result, they could not pay their SMMEs on time. Eventually, that was sort of handled, and by mid March we made payments, right, and the construction mafia pulled back. The contractor then experienced cash flow challenges after our payment. Uh, that is in February, they experienced it, but after our payment, right, it seems that things became a bit better. They then had to provide us with another variation order, although we had no budget, by May 2022. All right. And as we speak, and I completed my contract with the agency in June 2022, but by that time, there was another 3 months delay in terms of the project. So you can think 6 months previously, 3 months now. That means that the project by end of June were 9 months behind schedule. It was indicated by end of June, when the project was at around 85% complete, that they will be finalizing the project by September 2022. But if you read the newspapers last week, it seems that our metro has their own financial challenges, specifically for current and ongoing infrastructure projects. And I'm not sure what impact that then may have on the completion date of 30 September 2022. Next slide, please. All right. So without too much, the mess that I explained to you is an everyday mess in South Africa in most construction projects. So if we say construction projects, infrastructure should be the leverage for us to ensure that we create jobs, that we create youth employment, that we build skills and the like. But the system which in we work is not de-risk, then we sit with a major challenge, obviously. All right. So the lessons then that we learn from this process is is quite vast, right? So we know that encountering problems is part of any process. An ideal world does not exist, not in our life, not in the next life, not in the previous life, right? budgets need to be committed before even starting a public process. And you'll see that in the timeline, we started the public process without knowing what budget we will get from the municipality. And the aim of us doing that was strategic. That when we speak to the people, automatically, after speaking, the municipality and therefore the political system is under pressure to start delivering, and that leveraged the funding. It's a forced way of doing things, which should not be the case, all right? But as an agency, you don't want to be seen to have been appointed as an infrastructure delivery agent of the city, but not moving on that. Our land development approvals and EIAs, it took quite long, or it was supposed to take long. If you look at the timelines, it took us 3 months because myself and my team walked the process through the town planning approvals through the EIA. But we've built strong relationships with the officials that were in charge of these processes. And the learning from that is that from the word go, build very good relations, because sometimes our silo mentality make that we create animosity amongst ourselves as professionals, and therefore then leveraging on good deeds can never happen. So we try to do that. Project schedules must be realistic. So sometimes your consultants will provide you with a project that are supposed to be 18 months, and they will tell you, no, we can do this project within, say, 12 months, right? But at that stage, when consultants work, remember, there's no contractor. And when the contractor comes, right, then you get the actual schedule. So always make sure that anything that you do, if it's 3 months, rather project it over a period of 6 months, because whether it's GCC or JBCC, there are inclement weather and labor delays that we will always find in South Africa. Um, therefore, the project schedules must be realistic, right? And there are always those with their own interest who want to push in this little bit, push in a family member, pull in a consultant that they are linked to, and that is called scope creep, right? So we must make sure and be alert to that as well. Communication, and that is the one part that Eugenie focused on in the last slide. Communication before, during, and after completion is essential. So we can't just speak to the people to ask them what you want. We must always advise them that you've wanted this is where we are. But even after that, when the project is done, right, we have to engage them, because they now the owners and users of the space, so to speak, right? So that builds trust, right, between yourselves or ourselves and our communities out there. And we don't see that on a regular basis. And this should be done through our RDP processes at ward level by politicians, etc. But it never happens. So us as professionals, as practitioners, we don't need to sit back. We then have to fulfill the space, unfortunately. Project steering committee, progress technical meetings, it should be as regular as possible, because they provide you with a clear indication on whether you're on track or not. Uh, One thing that we know, we cannot plan for nature. COVID, the storms, etc., that hit us, all right, will always be there, all right. But we must make sure in our project packaging, and that was quite a huge issue explained by Dr. Makhulong this morning. In terms of project packaging, we must then add some part to it that says that as we package, we must try and find how best can we de-risk this projects, because there will be delays, but at least through their delays, we de-risk the projects. But most importantly, I think for us as professionals, as practitioners, is to ensure that we are ethical, that we are honest in our behavior, all right, and then to complete any project to the best of our ability, because we are not spending our own money. We are entrusted with public money, and public money should be spent to the best of what the public needs, and not want, but what they need. And I think that is my last part in terms of take home. So I thank you for listening, and I would welcome any questions or clarities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Eldred. Thank you very much. I think there's already a question on the chat. Um, we might be out of the topic, but can I be clarified now that climate change is here and floods are one of the hazards that will attack us? What is the actual plan for that? How do we fund response, recovery, reconstruction, and development? Because most of the time we don't put aside budget for disaster. And I did see in your last slide, you had the thing about we cannot plan for nature, COVID storms. They will always be there and delay us. Please talk to that.
Yes, climate change is real. We saw in the global north as we speak what is happening. So I'm speaking now as a geographer. All right. When one look at world systems, and we always hear the narrative that Africa is saying that we've not been causing the challenges of climate change, right? Because we've not been the colonizers, all right? But be as it may, we live in a world where everything is interconnected. All right. So yes, climate change is real. So when we started our projects, we did some studies in terms of the sea level rise in East London, and we found out that over the last 15 years, there's been a slight rise of just over 1.5 millimeters, right? So imagine 1.5 millimeters as a volume of water coming from the ocean, all right? So when we have any eventuality, it means that our coastal infrastructure can be totally destroyed. They in the city, and I think there are others that are in some of the climate finance and climate systems committees, right, where they look at what type of mitigation there could be to protect our coasts, right? For this project itself, all right, we don't have much other than subsoil drains in the park itself, that if water then wash into the space, all right, that there's subsoil drainage that will absorb the water on the surface and relay it back into the sea, which is 150 meters away, all right? But climate risk will always be there. How we fund it, right, is possibly the discussion that was held in the last uh, discussion with the president had around the climate and our response to that going to 2030. All right. So
Mm,
to fund
mm,
climate is not an easy thing, because we must
yeah.
first find, but how do we climate proof? And if we have to climate proof our funding models, does it include at least some aspect of that in there? So it's not an easy answer, and I think it's a debate that can possibly take us the whole day in terms of systems
Okay.
theory, right? So I would be not reluctant, right, but I don't want to expand too much, but I agree that there should be some kind of climate mitigation built into any funding structure.
Okay. 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 Thank you, Aldred. We've run out of time on this, but we're going to take this into the conversations in the breakaway sessions. And Eldred is still going to be with us to come and engage with us in the breakaway sessions. So let me tell you what's going to happen. We're going to take a break now, and we're going to come back at 1:15. When we come back at 1:15, we're going into breakaway sessions. We've got 6 rooms, 6 breakaway rooms. Okay. So you're going to find a link to one of the rooms, room 1, 2, 3, 6 rooms. Please, if you find there's about 10, 15, about 15 people in a room, go to another one. You can go to another one. We want you to come and engage. Now is when we start hearing your voice in terms of what did you hear, what stayed with you around these interrelationships, around how we handling the complexity, around the blind spots, around the unintended consequences. This is now when we need to hear from you. So please, let's take a break now. Come back at 1:15. Choose a breakaway session. There's a breakaway leader there in that session. During the break time, take a photo of your pictures and upload them, because we want to have fun and look at those pictures. I'll talk to you about the pictures later, but for now, we want you to take a break, come back at 1:15, go into a breakaway session, get a way of participating in this conversation, and raise some of those discussions that you're having on the chat as well. All right. So let's leave here. We will see you in the breakaway sessions at 1:15. Thank you, Eldred and Eugene. We will also see you in the breakaway sessions.
Thank you all.
1:15, breakaway sessions.